how actually these gametes help in the process of fertilization. So gametogenesis actually is basically, it is nothing but it is the process of gamete formation, that is both male as well as the female gamete. So for the process of fertilization, as you all know, you require both male and the female gamete. So with the help of these gametogenesis, the male as well as the female gametes are being formed. So there are two forms of gametogenesis. One is called as spermatogenesis and the other one is called as oogenesis. Now, gametogenesis basically is nothing but actually here in which what happens is a diploid gamete cell, whether it may be a male cell or it may be a female cell. So a diploid gamete cell will produce the haploid sperm or the egg, haploid sperm as well as the egg. So with the help of the, what do you say, the oogenesis, you will develop the egg, and with the help of the spermatogenesis, you will develop the sperm. So that is what is called as the gametogenesis. So there are two forms of gametogenesis. One is called as spermatogenesis, and the other one is called as the oogenesis. So it is a process by which the gametes or the germ cells are being produced in an organism. So the formation of the egg cells or the ova is called as nothing but the oogenesis, and the formation of the spermatozoa or the sperms is called as spermatogenesis. So we can say gametogenesis is nothing but it is a process of gamete formation. It involves two forms. One is called as the spermatogenesis and the other one is called as oogenesis. Oogenesis forms the egg cells or the ova, whereas the spermatogenesis forms the sperms or the spermatozoa. Now, first, we will talk about what is spermatogenesis. Now, coming to spermatogenesis, as you all know, it is nothing but the formation of the sperms or the formation of the spermatozoa. Now, spermatogenesis basically is the process of maturation of the reproductive cells of the testes in the male so as to form the male gametes or the sperm. Now, in the spermatogenesis, basically what happens is the reproductive cells of the testes. You all know actually testes will produce the sperms. It is a male reproductive organ. So in the testes, actually the maturation of the reproductive cells, that is the sperms, will take place. So when once the testis is being matured, then the male gametes or the sperm cells are being produced. So that process, that phenomenon, we call it as nothing but the spermatogenesis. Now we'll see where actually this spermatogenesis occurs. Spermatogenesis process actually occurs in the wall of the seminiferous tubules, with the stem cells at the periphery of the tube and the spermatozoa at the lumen of the tube. Immediately under the capsule of the tubule are diploid undifferentiated cells. So these stem cells, we call it as nothing but the spermatogonia or spermatogonium. These will go through the mitosis with one offspring going on to differentiate into a sperm cell, while the other will give rise to the next generation of the sperm. So that is how the process of spermatogenesis will take place. So what is spermatogenesis? It is nothing but the formation of the sperms or the formation of the spermatozoa. Now, this occurs actually, it is a process of maturation of the reproductive cells of the testes. You all know actually testis is a male reproductive organ. Testis will only produce the male gametes, that is nothing but the sperm. So this process, that is the spermatogenesis, involves the maturation of the reproductive cells of the testis in the male. So this spermatogenesis basically occurs in the seminiferous tubules walls. You all know actually in the seminiferous tubules, it is a part of the testis of the males. So in this wall of the seminiferous tubules, actually the spermatogenesis will take place. And here you have got certain stem cells are there, which are present at the periphery of the tube, and also the spermatozoa, which are present at the lumen of the tube. And immediately underneath the capsule of these tubules, you find certain diploid undifferentiated cells are there. Now, these diploid undifferentiated cells, basically, they are called as nothing but the stem cells, and these are called as spermatogonia. They are called as a spermatogonia. Or we can say spermatogenesis takes place in the wall of the seminiferous tubules, which holds what? Which holds the stem cells, which are called as spermatogonia. These spermatogonia or the stem cells are the diploid undifferentiated cells. And these undifferentiated stem cells or the spermatogonia, they undergo mitosis. They undergo mitosis, and once they undergo mitosis, actually they give rise to the sperm cells. One offspring gives rise to, goes to differentiate into a sperm cell, while the other one will give rise to the next generation of the sperm. So like this, we can say that with the help of the mitosis, two cells are being produced. That is, the two sperm cells are being produced. One sperm cell, what it will do, it will differentiate. I mean, one of the, or it will differentiate to form, get converted into the sperm cell, and the other one actually will give rise to the next generation of the sperm. So that is what is called spermatogenesis. So what is spermatogenesis? It is the process of maturation of the testes of the male. So it occurs where? It occurs in the seminiferous tubules walls. Where are the seminiferous tubules located? They are actually present in the testis. So in the testis, in the wall of the testis of the the male, you have got the seminiferous tubules, and these seminiferous tubules actually has got the spermatogonia or the undifferentiated stem cells. These undifferentiated stem cells or the spermatogonia undergo mitosis and result in the formation of the two offsprings. One offspring will differentiate into a sperm cell, while the other will give rise to the next generation of the sperm. So that is how the process of spermatogenesis will take place. So the entire process of spermatogenesis actually we can divide into two subheadings. One is called as the formation of the spermatids from the cell of the germinal epithelium, and the other one is the metamorphosis of the spermatids into the sperm or the spermiogenesis. So we can say spermatogenesis involves two subheadings or the two substages again. One is called as the formation of the spermatids from the germinal epithelial cells, and the other one is the metamorphosis of the spermatid into the sperm or the spermiogenesis. Now we'll see how this spermatid is being formed. So the first stage actually is called as nothing but the formation of the spermatid. So the process of formation of the spermatid from the primary germ cells is called is the first stage. Actually, it is again divided into three phases. One is called multiplication phase. Second one is called as a growth phase, and the third one is called as a maturation phase. So the formation of the spermatid involves three phases. What are those? One is called as multiplication phase. Second one is called as the growth phase, and the third one is called as a maturation phase. Now we'll see one by one. So basically, spermatogenesis is what? It is nothing but the formation of the sperms which occurs in the testis, and which occurs actually the testis, and this occurs actually the formation of the sperm or the spermatid occurs in the wall of the seminiferous tubule, you all know, which is located in the testis. And here you have got the spermatogonia or the primary germ cells, which are primary germ cells you can say, or you can also call it as the stem cells, and these are undifferentiated cells. These only basically give rise to the spermatids. Okay. So they have classified or they have divided this spermatogenesis into two stages or two subheadings. One is called as a formation of spermatid from the primary germ cell, germinal epithelial cell, and the second one is the metamorphosis of the spermatid into the sperm or the spermiogenesis. Now we will see first how the spermatid formation will take place. So this spermatid formation actually involves three phases again. They are multiplication phase, growth phase, as well as the maturation phase. Now, next is what? Metamorphosis of the spermatid or the spermiogenesis. Now, during this spermiogenesis, again, they undergo modification in form and changes in the relative position. And these changes again can be summarized as the changes that occur in the nucleus, the changes that occur in the centrioles, changes in the mitochondria, formation of the acrosome, and the loss of cytoplasm. So the second stage, that is a metamorphosis of spermatid, which basically we call it as spermiogenesis, pass through these stages. Okay. So now we will see. So significance of this spermatogenesis. What is the significance of this spermatogenesis? It results in the reduction of the chromosomal number in the daughter cells, which is exactly half that of the parent cell. So in the end, four cells are formed. Formed in one spermatogonium. So that is what is called as the significance of the spermatogenesis. So spermatogenesis involves formation of nothing but the spermatid. Formation of the spermatid. Okay, so we all know, just now we have seen what is spermatogenesis. It involves what? It is the process of the maturation of the reproductive cells of the testis in the male, or we can say the testis will undergo maturation phase, and it will result in the formation of the male gametes of the sperm. So where does it occur, this spermatogenesis? It occurs in the wall of the seminiferous tubules, which is basically present in the testis. And This seminiferous tubules has what? They have got the stem cells called as the spermatogonia, which are undifferentiated cells. They undergo the process of mitosis and result in the formation of offsprings, with the one offspring differentiating into sperm cells while the other one giving rise to the next generation of the sperm. Now, the entire process of spermatogenesis, just now I told you, it has been divided into two subheadings. One is called formation of spermatid from the germinal epithelial cells, and the second one is the metamorphosis of the spermatid into the sperm, or the whole process being called as spermiogenesis. First, the formation of spermatid. It involves what? Three phases. One is called multiplication phase, second one is the growth phase, and the third one is maturation phase. So you all know actually how these spermatid are being formed. That is the cells, the primary germinal epithelial cells, or you can call it as the stem cells, which are undifferentiated. They undergo the process of mitosis, which involves three phases. One is called multiplication phase. First, the cells will multiply, and when once the cells multiply, they undergo they undergo the process of growth, and then they get matured. So when once they get matured, then it will result in the formation of a spermatid. Then next is the metamorphosis. So this spermatid or the sperm, the process which we call it as nothing but the spermiogenesis, will undergo certain changes. They will undergo certain modifications, not only in their structure but also in their relative position. Now these structures include, changes include changes in the nucleus, changes in the centriole, the mitochondria. Then apart from that, the formation of acrosome also will take place, and also the loss of cytoplasm. So when once this is completed, then only the complete spermatid, you can say, or the complete formation of the sperm will take place. Now, what is the significance of the spermatogenesis? It will lead nothing but, or it will form the daughter cells with the half the number of the chromosomes, or we can say that spermatogenesis result in the reduction division. Actually, you all know these germ cells or the sex cells. Meiosis will take place in the sex cells or in the germ cells, which undergo reduction division. So meiosis, you all know, actually it is a reduction division. So here, the process of spermatogenesis actually basically result in the reduction of the chromosome number in the daughter cells, which is exactly half to that of the parental cell. So in the end, how many cells are being produced? Each spermatogonium will have about 4 cells. So that is the significance or the result of the spermatogenesis. Now see here, this is about the spermatogenesis. This is about the oogenesis. When we talk about the spermatogenesis, first I have told you, see, the spermatogonium is there. Now this spermatogonium, which is nothing but spermatogonia, which is present in the wall of the seminiferous tubules, which is also called as, you can also call it as the stem cell, you can also call it undifferentiated cell, or the primary germinal epithelial cell. So this will undergo what? Mitosis. So when once it will undergo mitosis, and it will form the cell. Now this cell undergoes the meiotic division. It will undergo the meiotic division. So the meiotic division means two types of meiotic divisions are there. One is called as the meiosis 1, and the other one is called as the meiosis 2. Initially, first it will undergo mitosis, and it will result in the formation of the sperm or the spermatid. Then this will undergo meiosis, further changes. It will undergo meiosis 1 and then meiosis 2, and result in the formation of the 4 cells. In that, you get only the 4 sperm cells will be there. In each spermatogonia will hold how many cells? 4 sperm cells. So meiosis 1, will form what? The secondary spermatocyte. The secondary spermatocyte again will undergo this actually first one. Spermatogonia undergoes mitosis, and it will result in the formation of primary spermatocyte. This primary spermatocyte will undergo the meiotic divisions, that is meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Meiosis 1 will result in the formation of secondary spermatocyte, where it will result in only 2 cells. Later on, this secondary spermatocyte will undergo second meiotic division, and it will result in the form of 4 spermatids or the sperms. So, and apart from this, it will also undergo differentiation, the changes, as we have seen, like the changes in the nucleus, changes in the centriole, and all those things, and it will result in the formation of the sperms, 4 sperms. So in the end result is what? At the end of the spermatogenesis, each spermatogonia will give rise to 4 sperms. It will give rise to the 4 sperms. So this is all about the spermatogenesis. Very simple. So spermatogenesis is nothing but formation of the spermatocytes, or you can say formation of the spermatid or the sperms, basically. So here what happens? First, the spermatogonium, which is present in the wall of the testis, or that is the seminiferous tubule, will undergo mitosis, forms what? Primary spermatocyte. This primary spermatocyte undergo two meiotic division, that is meiotic 1 and meiotic 2. At the end of meiotic 1, it will result in the formation of secondary spermatocyte, two secondary spermatocyte. These will undergo further the second meiotic division and will result in the formation of four spermatids of the sperms. They will undergo differentiation and later result in the formation. Nothing but the sperm. First spermatid will be formed. These spermatid will undergo changes. They get differentiated and will form the sperm. So at the end result, at the end of the spermatogenesis, each spermatogonia will give rise to four sperms. Okay. So this is about the spermatogenesis. We'll come to oogenesis later. See here. Again, they have given here in the spermatogenesis. See, the primordial germ cells will be there. So that is 2N. It will undergo mitosis. Okay. Then these are the spermatogonia. So they will the spermatogonia actually will undergo the mitosis and it will give rise to four cells. Then I told you, the primary spermatocyte will be formed. Then after primary spermatocyte, it will give rise to the secondary spermatocyte, and that is with the help of meiosis 1. And then this primary secondary spermatocyte will undergo the meiotic 2 division and it will result in the formation of four spermatids, and this will undergo differentiation and form the four spermatozoa. So this is about the spermatogenesis. This we will come to that oogenesis later. Now coming to oogenesis. Now we will see what is oogenesis. So oogenesis is what? It is nothing but the formation of ova, we can say. In general, we can say it is the formation of the ova or formation of the egg. So it is again the process of maturation of the ova from the primary germ cells of the germinal epithelium in the ovary. So actually the primary germ cells which gives rise to the ova or which gives rise to the sperms, they are basically present where in the germinal epithelium of the testes as well as in the ovaries. So here these primary germ cells play a very, very significant role. They are actually undifferentiated cells. You can also call them as the stem cells. They only actually undergo maturation and then they give rise to the ova or the eggs. So here in the oogenesis also is the same thing as we have seen for spermatogenesis. Oogenesis also is nothing but it is a process of maturation of the primary germ cells which are present in the germinal epithelium of the ovary. So oogenesis occurs in the outermost layers of the ovaries, as we have seen, whereas in the case of spermatogenesis, we have seen actually it occurs in the wall of the seminiferous tubules. So here also oogenesis occurs in the outermost layers of the ovaries. So as with sperm production, oogenesis also starts with the germ cell, which is called as the oogonium. There it starts with the spermatogonium. So here it starts with the oogonium. So oogenesis starts with an oogonium, plural we can call it as oogonia. But this cell undergoes mitosis to increase in number, eventually resulting in up to 1 to 2 million cells in the embryo. So what happens is, actually again, oogenesis, what does it do first? It occurs in the outermost layers of the ovaries and it will start with an oogonium. Now this oogonium actually will undergo mitosis and it will give rise to a number of cells, about 1 to 2 million cells it give rise to. Okay, so that is how actually the ova or the the eggs are being produced. So like spermatogenesis, oogenesis also involves three phases. They are multiplication phase, growth phase, as well as the maturation phase. So that means first the oogonium, what it will try to do, first it will multiply. When once it multiplies, it gives rise to a number of cells, then they will further develop, they will grow. And after growing to a maximum size, then they they attain maturity. That is what we call it as nothing but the maturation phase. So there are three phases in the oogenesis, as we have seen earlier in case of the spermatogenesis, that is multiplication phase, growth phase, as well as the maturation phase. So like spermatogenesis, oogenesis is also what? It is nothing but the maturation of the primary germ cells of the germinal epithelium. Oogenesis, like the spermatogenesis, also occurs where? The outermost layers of the ovaries. Whereas here spermatogenesis occurs in the testes, whereas oogenesis occurs in the ovary. And oogenesis also starts with the oogonium. Whereas spermatogenesis starts with the spermatogonium, but here oogenesis starts with the oogonium. And this oogonium will undergo mitosis to increase in the number. And actually, basically, it involves three phases, that is multiplication phase, growth phase, as well as the maturation phase. Now we will see multiplication phase, growth phase, one by one, what happens. Now in the multiplication phase, the primordial germ cells of the germinal epithelium which lie in the ovary, they undergo what? Repeated mitotic divisions. they undergo repeated mitotic divisions to form a number of daughter cells. Which are all diploid in nature. You all know, actually, you should remember yesterday when I talked about you, the meiosis actually will give rise to the haploid cells, whereas mitotic division will give rise to the diploid cells. So here also in the multiplication phase, during oogenesis, what happens is the primordial germ cells of the germinal epithelium, which line up the ovary, or which is present in the lining of the ovary, they undergo repeated mitotic division, giving rise to a number of daughter cells, and these all daughter cells actually are diploid in nature. They are all called as oogonia. They are called as oogonia. Now, before entering the next phase, the oogonia will cease to divide. So that is how in the multiplication phase what happens is the primordial germ cells which are of the germinal epithelium which line the ovary, they undergo repeated mitotic division and to form a large number of diploid daughter cells which are called as nothing but the oogonia. Okay, so this once this multiplication phase is over, now the oogonia has to actually enter the growth phase. So before it enters the growth phase, now what happens that the multiplication phase has to be ceased. It has to be stopped. So then only it can enter into the growth phase. So what happens in the next stage, that is in the growth phase, since the egg cytoplasm is stuffed with reserve food material needed during development, the growth phase of the oocyte is long and elaborate. So the differentiation and the first maturation division of the egg takes place simultaneously with the growth. So the growth phase varies and may extend to many years. So here what they are telling is, now the growth phase, actually what happens during the growth, what happens, you require the necessary food. You require the food, you require the stored, whatever the stuff that is stored in the cytoplasm actually has to be used. So whatever the food that is present in the form of the reserve food material in the egg cytoplasm actually has to be needed during the development. So that is the reason why the growth phase of the oocyte it happens to be very long, it happens to be very elaborate. So the differentiation and the first maturation division of the egg will take place simultaneously along with the growth. So the growth phase actually will vary and it also may extend for many years. So that is what is called as nothing but the growth phase. The next phase is maturation phase. Now in the maturation phase, what happens? Now the primary oocyte does undergo two successive divisions. It undergo two successive divisions. So because oogonia, once the oogonia is there, it will divide with the help of mitosis. It forms what? It forms a primary oocyte. Like we have seen in spermatogenesis, it forms the primary spermatocyte. So here also, at the end of mitosis, now the oogonia will form what? Oogonia will form the primary oocyte. So the primary oocyte does undergo two successive divisions. It will undergo two successive divisions. So the first maturation division is a reduction division or the meiotic cell division, which results in the formation of two haploid daughter cells. Then each haploid daughter cell contains only one member of each homologous pair, and due to unequal division of cytoplasm, the cells are unequal. One with almost no cytoplasm, the cytoplasm which is termed as the first polocyte or the polar body, and the other cell is very large and it is practically with a full cytoplasm, so it represents the secondary oocyte. Okay, so that is how actually the division will take place. So here what they are saying is, now the primary spermatocyte which is formed will undergo what? Two successive divisions. The first maturation division, it will undergo the process of maturation phase now. So the first maturation division actually is a reductional division, which is reductional division in the sense it is nothing but a meiotic cell division. So the first maturation division actually is a reductional division, or you can also call it as a meiotic cell division, which result in the formation of what? Which result in the formation of two haploid daughter cells. You all know meiosis will end in what? Haploid cells. So it will result in the formation of two haploid daughter cells. And they're saying that each haploid daughter cells contains only one member of each homologous pair. So each haploid daughter cell will have only one member of the homologous pair. So due to unequal division of the cytoplasm, what happens is these haploid cells are unequal. So one cell actually is present with almost no cytoplasm, and it is called as what? The first polocyte or the polar body. And the other one is what? Is very large. And the other cell is very large, and it has what? It has got full amount of cytoplasm, and hence it represents the secondary oocyte or the polocyte or the polar body, you can call it. Okay. The next is what happens. Now the secondary oocyte will undergo second maturation division. with unequal division of the cytoplasm, resulting in the formation of a large ovum and a small secondary polar body. So it will undergo, because that's now I have already told you the primary oocyte undergoes two successive divisions. First maturation division is a reductional division, which results in the formation of two haploid daughter cells. Okay. Then the secondary oocyte, what it happens, it will undergo second maturation division, again with unequal division of cytoplasm, but resulting in what? In the formation of a very large ovum and a small secondary polar body. In the first case, we found first polar body. In the second case, we find the second polar body. So the first polar body may or may not divide mitotically into two, but every single case says all of them will degenerate. So thus, the products of oogenesis are a single ovum and two or three haploid polar bodies found on the periphery of the ovum. So that is what they say. So the polar bodies actually, which are being formed with either very little amount of cytoplasm or with very huge amount of cytoplasm, what we call it as a polar body. These polar bodies actually may divide or they may not divide mitotically. So when once they do not divide, naturally they get degenerated. So the products of in the end, the result or the products of the oogenesis will result in the formation of nothing but a single ovum as well as 2 to 3, you can say, haploid polar bodies. You can say only one single ovum plus 2 to 3 haploid polar bodies. So that is how the oogenesis will take place. So the oogenesis actually follows 3 phases, as I told you. One is called as a growth phase. Then you have got the multiplication phase. Second is the growth phase, and the third one is the maturation phase. Okay, now I'll show you pictures. Now here see oogenesis. As we have seen for spermatogenesis, so this is the oogenesis. This is the oogenesis. Now here see, when you observe the oogenesis, same way you have got the germinal cell, which is called as a primary, primordial cell, or you can also call it a stem cell. Okay, or you can also call it as what is the oogonia. So here, this is the germinal cell. This is diploid in nature. This will form what? This will form the primary oocyte with the help of mitotic division. It will undergo mitotic division and it will result in the formation of a primary oocyte, because you all know actually mitosis will result in diploid, whereas meiosis will result in haploid cells. So it will undergo the mitosis and it will form a primary oocyte. Now this primary oocyte undergo the first meiotic division and it forms what? A first polar body and a secondary oocyte. It will form a secondary oocyte as well as a first polar body. Secondary oocyte actually, you know, it is haploid in number, and the first polar body. First polar body is what? Another polar body. At here, the two cells are unequal. Unequal over here. One is very big and the other one is very small. And the one which is very small, you call it as nothing but the first polar body, because here unequal distribution of the cytoplasm will be there between these two. So the bigger one you call it as the secondary oocyte, and the smaller one you call it as the first polar body. You call it as a first polar body. Then this will again undergo what? The second meiotic division. So as we see here, secondary oocyte, which is haploid in number, again undergoes what? The meiosis 2 division, and it will result in the formation of the ovum, which is haploid, and it will form again a second polar body. It will form a second polar body. And the first polar body which is present, which is a product of meiosis 1, also may divide or may not divide. If it divides, then it will result in the formation of the polar bodies like this, second polar bodies. So it depends. So if it doesn't divide, then it will get degenerated. And if it wants to divide, it will divide and then result in the formation of the second polar body. So this is the schematic representation of the oogenesis. So like spermatogenesis, oogenesis also take place. Oogenesis occurs where actually it takes place in the ovary. That is, so in the ovary, in the walls of the ovary, you have got the primary germ cells, means the cells which line the germinal epithelium, which are called as the primary germ cells, or you can call them as the stem cells. These actually are nothing but they are the oogonia. They are diploid in nature. They undergo mitosis and they form what? A primary primary oocyte, which is diploid. Now, with the help of mitosis, it undergoes mitosis and forms only the primary oocyte. Now, this primary oocyte undergoes meiotic divisions. Two meiotic divisions it will undergo. Now, first meiotic division it will undergo and it will form what? A secondary oocyte, which is haploid, and it forms a first polar body. We have already seen what is a polar body. Now, again, it will undergo again the secondary oocyte as well as the first polar body. They will undergo the second meiotic division, and this secondary oocyte, which is haploid in the number, will form what? A single ovum, which is again haploid, and it forms a second polar body. Simultaneously, the first polar body, which is formed during the meiosis one, sometimes it may divide or sometimes it may not divide. If it doesn't divide, it will degenerate. And if it wants to divide, it will divide and result again in the formation of the second polar body. So this is called as nothing but the oogenesis. So this is how the difference between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Same way. See, here you have spermatogonium. Here you have got the oogonium, that is a germinal cell which is diploid, and it undergo mitosis. This also undergo mitosis, and it forms primary spermatocyte. Here it forms primary, here it forms primary oocyte, and it forms primary spermatocyte. It undergoes meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, likewise, and undergo differentiated. Here also you have this primary oocyte will undergo what? The meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Meiosis 1 will form secondary oocyte, and secondary oocyte will form the ovum. But here only one single ovum is formed. Whereas in the case of the spermatogenesis, it will give rise to 4 sperm cells or the 4 spermatids. They undergo differentiation and then they will form the full-fledged spores. But here in case of oogenesis, it forms only one single ovum, large ovum, and along with either 2 to 3 polar bodies. Okay. So this is about the oogenesis. Another diagram is there. So here also you have seen here the same way oogenesis. Now these are all the oogonia, same way, which are called as the primary germ cells. Now they will undergo mitosis. This oogonia, first mitotic joint, second mitotic joint, the result 2 successive divisions will be there. So first 2 cells will be formed, then again 4 cells will be formed, as you have seen spermatogenesis. Here it is the same. Then what happens? It will now this will undergo again the meiotic division. After mitosis, it will undergo the meiotic division. So in case of the oogenesis, primary oocyte is formed. Now this primary oocyte will form the secondary oocyte, and then it will form the ovum as well as the polar body. Again, here you have got the polar bodies are there, no? Along with the primary oocyte, you have got the polar body. So this polar body, this is the second polar body, and this second polar body again you get a single ovum. So like this means the result of oogenesis is nothing but only one ovum is there, and you may have 2 to 3 polar bodies. Here, if you see here, we have got the 4 cells. So that is how you have to differentiate the spermatogenesis with that of the oogenesis. Okay. Now we'll see what is the significance of oogenesis. Now coming to the significance of oogenesis. Now you all know actually the ovum formed as a result of oogenesis will contain only half the number of the chromosomes. It contains only half the number of the chromosomes that are present in the parent cell. So this reduction in the chromosome number helps in restoring the parental chromosomal configuration. It helps in restoring the parental configuration, chromosomal configuration, even after the fusion of the gamete at the time of fertilization. So that is what the significance of oogenesis. So as a result of oogenesis, what happens? It contains only half the number of the chromosome as it is present in the parent cell. So this reduction in the chromosome number will help to restore the parental chromosomal configuration even after the fusion of the gamete at the time of fertilization. So this is the significance. Now we have seen, so what is spermatogenesis? You know, what is, gametogenesis? There are 2 forms of gameto. What is gametogenesis? That is nothing but formation of gametes. What are gametes? Sperms as well as the ova. And the ova. So spermatogenesis involves what? 2 phases. One is called as the oogenesis, and the other one we call it as gametogenesis involves 2 phases. One is called as the spermatogenesis, and the other one is called as oogenesis. Spermatogenesis helps in the formation of the sperms, whereas oogenesis helps in the formation of the ova. So that is how, with the help of these 2 processes, the gametes are being formed. Then once the gametes are being formed, that is the male cells as well as the female cells, or you can say the eggs or the ova as well as the sperms, they fuse and they fertilize and they form a zygote. So now we'll go into the next stage, that is called as nothing but the fertilization. Now Coming to fertilization, so when once the gametes are being formed, or the next stage that need to occur is nothing but the fertilization. That is, the union of these two gametes has to take place. The fusion of these two gametes has to take place. Okay. So fertilization is what? Fertilization is nothing but the fusion of the two gametes, that is the sex cells. One is called as a male gamete, that is a sperm, with the female gamete, that is a ovum, followed by the joining together of the nuclei. So as a result of fertilization, what happens? A single fertilized cell will be formed, which is known as nothing but a zygote. So in case of fertilization, what happens when you have got a male gamete as well as a female gamete, you have to allow them to fuse it. So the fusion of these two gametes, that is sex cells, that is the ova as well as the sperm, what it will do? They will join along both the cytoplasm as well as the nuclei will join, and as a result, what happens? Only one egg will be formed, that is a cell will be formed, that is a single fertilized cell, that we call it as nothing but a zygote of the egg. It is called as a zygote of the egg. So the act of fertilization includes the union of the nuclei of both male and female gametes along with the fusion of their cytoplasm. So fertilization involves the what the fusion or the union of the both the nucleus as well as the cytoplasm. So that means the nucleus, first the nuclei followed by the division of this, or the diffusion of the cytoplasm has to take place. Then only the union will be complete, or you can say the fertilization will be complete, and it will result in the formation of the what do you say, the egg or the zygote. So now this fertilization occurs outside the body of the female in the lower non-chordates and chordates, but in all higher chordates and in some non-chordate, ovum is fertilized within the body of the female. So you all know actually sometimes fertilization, when we talk about, some say it is external fertilization and some say it is internal fertilization. Okay, so like that. So fertilization actually occurs outside the body of the female in lower vertebrate non-chordates. If you see in the lower, almost all lower non-chordates as well as in some chordates, in the chordates, what happens? The fertilization actually will take place outside the body. But in all higher chordates and in some non-chordate, the ovum actually is fertilized within the female. It is fertilized actually within the body of the female. So the former we call it as the external fertilization, and the latter we call it as nothing but the internal fertilization. Means when the fertilization takes place outside the body of the female, then you say it is external fertilization, and when the fertilization occurs inside the body of a female, then you say it is internal fertilization. In sea urchins, the fertilization is external and the sperms and ova are released in the water. Example, like in sea urchins, actually the fertilization is external, the sperms. Even in the fishes, if you see, in the fishes, the eggs are being fertilized in the water. Since they are aquatic and they live in the water, the fertilization actually takes place externally. That is, it occurs in the water. So such type of fertilization you call it as the external fertilization. So in majority, in almost all the lower vertebrates, you can say, or the lower quadrates as well as in some quadrates, the fertilization is external. But in all higher quadrates and in some non-quadrates, the ovum is being fertilized only inside the body of a female. Okay, so this is about, that is what is called as fertilization. Now we will see what actually happens in the fertilization. So here see. So this is the egg membrane and this is the vitelline membrane which have egg nucleus. Okay, so fusion of the sperm and the egg membrane, or actually the sperm will penetrate through this membrane and it will reach the egg. So this is actually the sperm and this is the egg. So that is how they are forming. And then when once the sperm will enter, okay, inside the egg, that is a vitelline membrane shoots out to form the fertilization membrane. The next what happens is a fertilization membrane will block the entrance of the other sperm. It will allow only one sperm to enter into it. So when the one sperm will enter into it, but it will block the other sperms, will not allow the other sperms to enter. Only one sperm will enter into the egg. This is the sperm nucleus, the sperm centriole, and here this is the egg nucleus. So both of them here, actually here, see here, both of them diffuse and they form the, so the sperm membrane, how it is being formed, distal centriole. So these are some of the stages. What happens, the fusion of the egg and the sperm membrane will take. So this is how the process of the fusion, or you can say the spermatogenesis, will take place. See here, fertilization, if you see, observe here. Okay, this is actually the, these are all the, the sperms which are actually roaming near the egg. So this is actually the ova, you can say. This is the ova, and these are all the sperms. So what happens is, and these are the different layers of the what is it, ova, where you have corona radiata, And then this is the nucleus which is present. This is the cytoplasm, and this is the plasma membrane, and this is the zona pellucida. So the ova actually is being bounded by all those things. So when how these fertilization take place is the sperms. These are all the sperms. Only one of the sperm actually will enter into it. Only one sperm will enter into the what do you say, the egg. Then only the fertilization. It will not allow. So because the vitelline membrane which surrounds the egg will not allow the other sperms to enter into the what do you say, the egg. So only one what do you say, the sperm will enter into the ova, and then it will fuse and then form a cycle. So this is schematic. So now mechanism of fertilization. Now we will see how actually the fertilization mechanism will occur. Now first is approach of the spermatozoa to the egg. So whether the fertilization is external or internal, the first step is what is the encounter of the spermatozoon and the ovum, which is brought about by swimming movement of the spermatozoa. Okay, so as you all know, actually, because spermatozoon should come to the egg, the sperm should come to the egg because the sperms are motile, whereas eggs are not motile. So that is why whether it is external fertilization or whether it is internal fertilization, and since they are motile, that is, they actually show the swimming movement, the spermatozoa actually need to go or need to encounter the ovum. Then only the fertilization process will take place. So encounter between the sperm and the ova is purely accidental, because the movements of the spermatozoa are entirely at random. So it occurs only randomly. So it occurs, it is accidental. It will not occur purposely, it occurs only accidental. So next step is what? Agglutination. So what happens is when the spermatozoa reaches near the egg, so the jelly-like substance surrounding the egg produces a chemical substance which is called as fertilizin. It is called as fertilizin, and the sperm and the sperm a chemical which is known as antifertilizin. So here what happens is, now they are saying that the jelly-like substance which surrounds the egg membrane, you call it as fertilizin, and similarly, the sperm also produces a chemical substance which is called as antifertilizin. So the addition of the spermatozoa to the surface of the eggs is being brought about by the linking of these fertilizin molecules with the antifertilizin molecules, which establish an initial bond. So that is how actually the affinity or the bonding will take place. Is it okay? Because see how actually though we know that actually whether it is a external fertilization or internal fertilization, sperms are motile and they show the swimming movement. The sperms have to go near to the egg. So how do they go? So here they are saying the agglutination process has to take place, because now the egg membrane actually surrounding the egg membrane, you have got a jelly-like substance, which that jelly-like substance actually is there surrounding the egg. It produces a chemical substance which we call it as fertilizin. Simultaneously, the sperm also will produce another substance which is called antifertilizin. So how does the addition, how the attachment of the spermatozoa to the surface of the egg occurs? It is brought about by the linking of the fertilizin molecules with that of antifertilizin molecules. So when once the fertilizin molecules as well as the antifertilizin molecules get linked, it will initiate a bond, or it establish an initial bond linkage. So that is how actually the fertilization will take place. So in addition to this, they are saying that this fertilizin will react with antifertilizin and cause agglutination of the spermatozoa. So the fertilizin, what it will do, it will react with the antifertilizin. Fertilizin is being produced by what? The egg membrane. Antifertilizin is being produced by the the sperms. So the fertilizin, in addition to this, fertilizin will also react with antifertilizin and cause agglutination of the spermatozoa. Okay, so when once this occurs, then what happens? There are chances of the sperm to penetrate into the egg. So how does the sperm penetrate into the egg? We'll see. First one is what? Agglutination phenomena has to take place. How the agglutination phenomena take place? Nothing but by the production of antifertilizin and fertilizin. Fertilizin being produced by ova and antifertilizin being produced by the sperm. So when once both these are being produced, they got a affinity, they got a bonding between them. So because of their bonding, they come close together, the addition will take place. So that addition is nothing but it is called as agglutination. So fertilizin will react with antifertilizin molecule and cause agglutination. So when once this phenomena is over, this process is over, next step is what? The sperm has to gain entry into the egg. So how does it gain entry into the egg? Now, it is actually purely chemical. So what they're saying is the spermatozoa on being attached to the surface of the ovum, it produces the chemical substances of enzymatic nature, which are known as the sperm lysins. Now, these are being produced by the acrosome of the spermatozoa. Okay, the story of antifertilizin, fertilizin is over. So that their work is over. They only help in the linking. They help only in the bonding. Okay. But when once the bonding is over, the next step is what? The sperm has to penetrate into the egg. So this mechanism, actually, they are saying it is purely chemical, because the spermatozoon, when it gets attached to the surface of this, what do you say, the ovum, it produces what? It produces certain chemical substances which are enzymatic in nature. These chemical substances, they are called as what? Sperm license. And these are actually being produced by the acrosome of the spermatozoon. Now, if you see the structure of a spermatozoon or a sperm, now actually there are three, what do you say, the parts. One is called as a head, a middle piece, and a tail. And towards the head, at the tip of the head, actually, you have got a conical projection. That conical projection you call it as nothing but the acrosome. So this acrosome only helps in the penetration of this sperm into the egg. So with the help of this acrosome only, the spermatozoa, or you can say the sperm, is able to penetrate into the egg. So acrosome plays a very, very important role over here. So the sperm license which are being produced also actually are being produced by the acrosome. So these dissolve the egg membranes in the local area and clear the path for the spermatozoon to reach the surface of the egg. So as a result, what happens? What does this sperm license do? They will dissolve the egg membrane, because surrounding the egg you have got the egg membrane, and once it has to enter into the egg, means the egg membrane will be surrounding the egg. So that membrane has to be dissolved. So with the help of this sperm lysis, the egg membrane will get dissolved and it will make a clear path for the spermatozoon to reach the surface of the. So that is how it will take place. The next is what? Formation of the acrosomal filament. Now, under the influence of this fertilization, what happens is, now the central transparent portion of the acrosome will elongate and it will get changed into a thin tubular filament called as acrosomal filament. Now, this filament penetrates through the jelly coat and vitelline membrane and touches the plasma membrane, which is present around the egg of the cytoplasm. Okay? So the next stage is what? Formation of acrosomal filament. Now, acrosomal filament, how it is being formed? So when once under the influence of fertilization, okay, first stage is agglutination. Second step, what we agglutination occurs because of the production of what? Fertilizin and as well as anti-fertilizin. Then next is what? The production of the sperm license, which are being produced by the acrosome. So this acrosome, what it will do, it will produce the sperm license. The sperm license will dissolve the egg membrane. So when once the egg membrane is being dissolved, the sperms can easily gain entry into the egg. Okay. The third one is what? Formation of acrosomal filament. So under the influence of this fertilization, what happens? The central transparent portion of the acrosome which is present, it will get elongated and it will get changed into a thin tubular filament which is called acrosomal filament. So this acrosomal filament, what it will try to do? It will try to penetrate the jelly membrane as well as the vitelline membrane, membrane, and then it will touch the plasma membrane which surrounds the egg cytoplasm. So that is how it will go near to the egg, help in or it helps the sperm to reach near to the egg. Okay. The next reaction of the egg for the sperm. So coming in contact with the acrosomal filament of the spermatozoon, the cytoplasm of the egg will bulges forward to produce a conical projection called as a fertilization cone. So when once the egg, what happens, comes into acrosomal filament of the spermatozoon, the egg cytoplasm, what it will do, it will try to bulge. It will bulge forward and it will produce a conical projection called as nothing but the fertilization cone. Fertilization cone. So when once the fertilization cone is being formed, what does the egg do? It will gradually engulf the spermatozoon and then begins to retract, carrying the spermatozoon inward. So it will try to what? With the help of this, what do you say, the projection or the cone, that is a fertilization cone, it will engulf the spermatozoon and then it will try to begin to retract, come forward and carry the spermatozoon inward. Simultaneously, the surface of the egg cytoplasm also will exhibit the reactions. Then the changes will start from the point of attachment of the spermatozoon and gradually spread over to the whole surface of the egg. So that is how the changes will take place. That means the sperm will come nearer to the the egg, surface of the egg, and both of them they unite. Then when once they touch each other, then the changes will start. Now the changes will affect the organization of the egg cortex and in particular the cortical granules. Immediately after fertilization, the two layers of the plasma lemma of the egg will become separated from one another and from the surface of the egg as fertilization membrane. So that is how. So one by one, they go near to it, and once they go, what happens? They will it will form a fertilization cone. The egg membrane will form a fertilization cone, and in the fertilization cone, the spermatozoon will be engulfed. And when once it first it will protrude and form a fertilization cone, and then it will try to engulf that spermatozoon. And once it engulfs, then it will try to retract, and then it will carry the spermatozoon inside the egg. So when once it goes near to it, then what happens? The surface of the egg cytoplasm also will extend and it undergo cortical reactions. The changes will start from the point of attachment of the spermatozoon and it will spread towards the surface of the egg. So the changes will affect the organization of the egg cortex also, particularly the cortical granules. And immediately what happens? After fertilization, the two layers of the plasmalemma of the egg, they get separated from one another and they form what? The fertilization membrane. That is how the fertilization membrane is being formed. Then next, the cortical granules, they swell up, they become liquefied, and liquid is released into the space between the egg cytoplasm and the fertilization membrane. So later on, what happens? These granules, which are present, cortical granules, they swell up, they become liquefied, and then the liquid is released into the space which is present between the egg cytoplasm and the fertilization membrane. The next, how does the sperm will behave in the ovum? Usually, the entire sperm enters the ovum, but in the sea urchin, the tail is left outside the vitelline membrane, and the head and the middle piece only enter the egg. So basically speaking, if you observe in almost all the animals, the whole entire sperm, that is both the head, middle piece as well as the tail, everything, the whole entire structure of the sperm actually will enter the ovum. But in case of sea urchin, the tail is left, it seems, outside the vitelline membrane, and only the head and the middle piece will enter the egg. So the subsequent behavior of the spermatozoon depends upon the stage of maturation. So the egg has reached at the time of fertilization. So in sea urchin, the egg is laid and fertilized only after it has extruded out both its polar bodies. So that is the reason why what happens here, only the tail will be left behind and only the head and the middle piece actually will go enter into it. This is an exceptional case, but in majority, almost in all cases, the whole the structure of the sperm actually will enter into the egg. Okay, so this is how the sperm, the sperm will enter, behave with the ovum. Then next what happens? The membrane of the sperm will dissolve, liberating the nucleus and the centrosome and the mitochondria. First, the egg membrane will dissolve. Now, the membrane of the sperm will get dissolved and it liberates the nucleus along with the centrosome as well as the mitochondria. Then the sperm nucleus will immediately proceed to unite with the egg nucleus. So when once the sperm nucleus actually is being released, what happens now? There are no barriers now because egg membrane is dissolved and also the sperm membrane is dissolved. Now the sperm nucleus will be free and even the egg nucleus will be free. Both of them immediately, they will proceed further and they then unite with each other. So that is how the sperm nucleus as well as the egg nucleus actually will undergo fusion. Okay, now it's the next stage is what? Fusion of the male and female pronuclei. So when the spermatozoon first penetrates into the egg cytoplasm, its acrosome is directed forward and is followed by nucleus and the centrosome. So once it penetrates the egg, what happens? First, acrosome will be directed because it is present in the head region. So it is directed forward and which is followed by nucleus and the centrosome. And soon the nucleus and the centrosome also will try to rotate the centrosome. Nucleus and centrosome rotate. Centrosome will come ahead of the nucleus, turns at 180 degrees so that now it comes forward and move towards the area where fusion with the egg nucleus or the female pronucleus has to take place. So that is how it will take place. So the fusion of the male and the female pronuclei. So what they say is, see, whenever the spermatozoon or the sperm it enters, first it will penetrate the egg. First, acrosome region actually will penetrate. First, it is directed forward as actually it is present in the anterior region and it is present in the anterior-most region of the head. So first, it will penetrate through the head region. So that is the reason why the acrosome actually first will penetrate and it is directed forward, followed by the nucleus as well as the centrosome. The next is what simultaneously what happens? The sperm nucleus or the male pronucleus, it will swell up and it will become vesicular. Its chromatin will become granular. The centrosome will become surrounded by an aster. So sperm nucleus or the male pronucleus, what does it do? It will swell up and it will become vesicular. The chromatin will become granular and the centrosome will become surrounded by an aster. Then what happens to the female pronucleus? It also moves to the site of fusion. The site is usually present in the center of the cell. The movement of female pronuclei is probably because of the force of attraction by the movement, but the movement is automatic. So what happens? The female pronucleus also will move towards the fusion site, and it is usually present in the center of the cell. And the movement of this female nucleus actually occurs because of the force of attraction. Then in the last stage, what happens when the male and the female pronuclei actually fuse together, then the nuclear membrane will break off at the point of contact, and the contents of the nuclei, that is both male and female, they unite into one mass surrounded by a common nuclear membrane. Then at the approach of the first cleavage of the fertilized egg of sea urchin and paternal line become segregated and arranged on the equator of the achromatic spindle. So here what happens is, in the last stage, what happens when the male and the female pronuclei, they come close together, they actually fuse together. Actually, whenever in the last stage, they actually fuse. So when once they fuse, what happens? The nuclear membrane breaks off at the point of contact, because you have the nuclear membrane of the sperm as well as the nuclear membrane of the egg. So when both of them come into fuse together, definitely the nuclear membrane of the egg as well as the nuclear membrane of the sperm, they need to break off. So they will break off at the point of contact, and the contents of both the nuclei, that is both the male as well as the female, that is the sperm as well as the ova, they will unite into one mass, and which is being surrounded by the common nuclear membrane. So that is how actually the egg or the zygote will be formed. So when once the fusion is complete, it will result in the formation of the zygote, or it will result in the formation of nothing but the fertilized egg. Okay, so this that what is the significance of fertilization? The results of fertilization are what? Here, the entrance of the sperm will activate the secondary oocyte to complete its second maturation division. It includes the movement of cytoplasm and the pigment granules and marks the fertilization tract, introduces the second centriole and induces the spindle formation, and restore the diploid number of the chromosomes and recombine the maternal and paternal genetic trait, and induces the change in the periphery of the egg, and this change precludes the entry of the other sperm. Okay, so okay, so this is how, this is what is called as nothing but this is the about the fertilization. Now today we have seen actually what is gametogenesis, what is oogenesis, what is spermatogenesis, and what is fertilization. See, when the male and the female nuclei has to be formed, or that is the sperm cell are present, they need to be fertilized, because when once it fertilizes only, but after fertilization only the what happens, the progeny will be formed. So that is why fertilization also is a very important aspect, because the gametogenesis should always be followed by fertilization. Fertilization happens, or it will result in the formation of the zygote, and this zygote further will undergo what is the morphogenesis, or it will undergo the divisions, further divisions. So it will form first the morula, blastula, gastrula. It undergo different stages, and it will result in a full-fledged organism later. So that is how morphogenesis will take place in the zygote, and it will result in a full-fledged, you can say, the individual or the. So this is all about the gametogenesis, that is oogenesis, spermatogenesis, as well as the fertilization. So today what we discussed is nothing but about the gametogenesis. So gametogenesis, you all know, is nothing but it is the it involves what two forms. One is called spermatogenesis, and the other one is called as the oogenesis. Spermatogenesis is the formation of the sperms or the spermatid, and oogenesis is the formation of the what is it, ova. So when both the sperms, that is male and female gametes, when both these are being formed, then they will undergo fertilization, and the fertilization actually will result in the formation of the zygote or the fertilized egg, and this zygote or the fertilized egg will undergo further divisions, it will undergo further changes, and it will result in the formation, and it will result in the formation. Sorry, class lo undanadi. Okay, eppudu sir? Sorry. Okay, so that is how the mechanism of fertilization take place, and each phase has got its own significance. That is gametogenesis, that is both spermatogenesis as well as oogenesis, also the fertilization. So today with this, we are going to, close it now. Tomorrow again we will meet.